All right. Sorry about that, everyone. I was just getting everything situated. Usually I have my microphone off, but apparently I did not this time. So, good morning. All right. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you are, my friends. How are you? Thanks for joining the live stream. We're just getting set up here. Thanks for the thumbs up. Good to see folks are in here. Oh, my phone, of course, being loud. All right. So, something new going on today. Something I haven't done yet before. We're going to see how well this works out. And we're going to go from there. But today I'm going to be working on a project that it may look similar to some of you, but to others of you, to other ones of you, to some of you. There we go. To some of you, you may have seen some of the artwork that we've used here before. I'll be using my Terrafarmers art set for this particular little game idea that I have. And it's kind of time for me to show you guys that I do know what I'm talking about and I can make a finished game. And so I'm kind of poking fun of myself there. That's not a jab at anybody who said anything or anything like that. But I'm going to blow you all away. Boom! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Alex, and I decided that today I was going to start live streaming with, my face. It's time that you guys actually start seeing more of me, because you, especially in my upcoming Udemy style classes, you will see more of my face. So let's get it over with. Hey, what's going on? Bob the hobo. Uh, no, but yeah, how's it going, man? Yeah, so I'm going to be kind of looking off here. I've got one monitor over here and my main monitor here. So I'll be trying to look at you in the face as often as I can, but I'll be reading your text over here. So if you see my eyes shift this way, then that's what I'm doing. So, anyways, let's jump into this project. I have a relatively simple idea that I think that would be really fun, and it's kind of based already on some things that I've already done in the past. So you're going to see me look back at reflect on some old code that we've done on live stream before, back when my channel first started, and then we're going to be looking at just kind of simple mechanics and getting squared away here. So no more without delay. Let's do this. Right. All right. Hopefully everything is skookum today. I hope you all are doing well. Okay, so I'm going to transition over here to the main screen, my main kind of situation here. And I'm going to get rid of that. Don't need that anymore. We're just going to open up Gdevelop 5. So if you haven't used Gdevelop yet, let me see if I can get some more lighting. That was really warm lighting. Oof. Let's see if I can get that towards me, but out of the way at the same time. I might need to plug in my other light. That is far too bright, that one. It's washing the other side of my face. So we'll see how this works, but I might need to put my other light over here so you guys can see my face without shadow. Anyways, forgive my digression there. We're going to go ahead and open up Gdevelop. And I'm going to be doing less explaining and more just kind of creating, because this is sort of a live stream around the creation of my game. So I'm going to kind of do a quick drawn example of what I want to do. These will be the sprites that I'll be using here. Let's go into open. We're going to open up a single canvas based around the clipboard size that's fine. So I have a very simple idea, and I've seen it done before, so this isn't anything new, really. I'm just kind of building upon other mechanics I've seen in my life, but no direct inspiration to any one particular game here. I would say that the closest inspiration I could think of would be Forager. So, anyways, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with a single. Oh my goodness, we're going to start with a single. Oh my, oh my, what is happening here? There we go. All right, we're gonna start with like a single land square, and in that land square, you're going to have some basic elements that you can like mine and craft with, right? So let's say we're just gonna use this as like a shrub or a tree maybe, and then we're gonna use like rocks and things like that. So let me just kind of put some examples down. Now, the way that the movement mechanic is going to work because we're going to be developing in terms of mobile first, meaning that we focus primarily on the mobile aspects, but we're going to have web control or PC control as well. So what we want to do, right, is whenever we click the mouse button down, we're going to create a, how do I explain this? We're going to create a mobile joystick at the position of wherever we click. And this will be the same thing as a finger touch. So this is why I'm saying click, but finger touch will also be what happens in Gdevelop. That's what we're looking for. So it'll be an expression that has to do with both the mobile and the keyboard input. Anyways, or mouse input. So what's going to happen is we're going to click the joystick, and it's going to create the little virtual joystick wherever it is on the map, wherever we click. And once that happens, wherever our mouse drags from that point, or where our finger drags to that point, it's going to then map that direction. So we're going to be able to get the input direction based on those things. And then also, you're going to be able to use WASD to move around if you don't have a mobile device. So this way, even if you click on the screen, right, it's still going to move your, you'll still be able to use the mobile controls even while in desktop mode. We could disable that, but I think that in this particular design, I want it to remain there. And we'll go more into depth why I chose that overall later on. But, so once we have this kind of joystick movement system, wherever you click, it's going to spawn and let you move. And then we're going to have our player object, of course. And what's going to happen is we're going to use a sort of like a directional radius. So imagine, for example, our player kind of sees in this red tilted direction, okay? So what we're going to do is make it so that way the player has to face in the right direction, and once they are, assuming they have the right tools in their loadout, they'll be able to like auto harvest. And so the way that this will work is your character will kind of move around and collect things, and once you collect enough things, you're going to be able to purchase or expand the world map. And I have an idea on how to do this already in my mind. Okay, I didn't realize I had Steam open. Most of these people befriended over time, so don't even know who they are. And I don't want no crazy names, because you know, guys know how Steam works, right? You know, we're not going to go in there. Anyways, so what's going to happen is we're going to have kind of these blank squares that can be purchased with resources. And as you expand your little square, it'll build other land pieces that you can just like navigate to, but it's all going to be connected. So that's kind of the base mechanic, and I think that I'm going to be able to get most of that done in a few hours. So let's start. Because I don't have to make the art, I've already done most of it. It'll be a lot of exporting right now, and then I'll be getting it into the let me go ahead and move this over 1 second. My daughter just came home. Okay, so yeah, so that's kind of the basic idea. And then in the UI interface, what we're going to do is every time you collect an item, it's just going to go to the top of the screen on the right hand side, and you'll be able to see how much of each item you have right next to it. Okay, so that's the basic layout, and we're not going to deal with any real like elaborate design here. We're going to keep it really simple, so that way we can get this base mechanic out. I'll put my camera back up once my daughter's finished doing what she's doing. So let's get into that on a on back on the art level. So now I got to go back through all my designs. So we're going to be going back to my player design for uh, my game Terrafarmers that I was working on. I think that in this design format, we only need two directions. We need left and right. Even though we're going to be able to move up and down, we'll still be using the left and right animation, and then a simple idle animation. And then eventually we'll have some sort of attack animation that'll automatically be displayed, and it'll probably be like a floating weapon that comes out and like strikes the tree or something like that. So here's the major tile set that I'll be using for this that I've been working on for my other game. And we've got a lot of assets to work with in this design, so we're going to keep it kind of all sort of situated within this art format. So what I want to do is go about exporting all of this data. Because Gdevelop, one second. Okay, sorry about that. So getting back into it here, what I want to do is export all of these, and then that way we have sort of a simple template, or not a template, we have some terrain to start working with. My cat is meowing after my daughter who just left. And then we're going to kind of... Come here. Come on. Calcifer. All right. Let's do this. So I'm going to start a new file. Actually, I think I have one for this. No, it's all right. We're going to do this from the scratch. You guys can see me do it. So what I do here, sometimes depending on the situation, I will just copy everything into my tile set. Oh, please don't delete that one. I need that. We don't need that. 1 second. I just got to delete a bunch of tiles in my art program. Whee! All right, I think we're almost there. Perfect. We're actually going to add another one and rearrange just a smidge. Okay. I'm pretty confident in that. Maybe we'll move these over by one. I move this guy up into here, I suppose. It doesn't really matter. All right, so what I've done is using the art program that I use, which is called Pixel Edit, I've assembled everything that I need right now into a tile set. Now, I do want to get like the trees and everything else, but these are going to have to be exported separately because they're technically 2 tiles large. Okay? And then I'll grab, let's see, we've got, I don't really have a bush, I realize. I have trees, but I don't have a bush. I guess I'll have to make a bush later. That's fine. We do have some other terrain that we can use in place of a bush, but I don't think we're going to stress on that point too much here. Okay, so we're going to start with the annoying exports. So we're going to start with the 2 here. Going to export the selected into a new folder location. We're going to use Space Rangers is going to be our current source. So we're going to go into tile set. And inside of tile set, we're going to put the environment. All right. So now that we have that, we're going to call this one tree pink or purple, I guess. It's kind of, I don't know, it could be crossed between the two. So we'll just do tree pink. And that's already, oh, I need to minimize that. I accidentally exported it at ×6. We're going to do that for tree green. And then we'll do it again for tree snow. Sure. All right. We're going to need some more resources, so let's copy these into our game as well. We'll copy the ores. Let's let's see. We're going to need the plant growth. So let's see, we'll do this whole stretch of creature. Maybe we'll do the bags as well, just so I have a couple things to interact with. Don't need any of those yet. Can definitely probably pick up the... Oh, this got damaged. That's all right. Pick up the tools as well, just so we have them for our game. We'll get the blank bag. And I think, honestly, that's probably enough for now. I don't think we need to grab anything more than that at the moment. We can grab some crafting machines and some other things here in a bit, but I think for right now this will do. Oh, and I also want this. Okay, so now that I have all of that sort of selected, what we're going to do is I'm going to export the lot of them. So export tile set, and we want each one as a separate tile. And I'll put those inside of my NVMe, Space Rangers, tile set. Most of that is environment, but for now we're just going to dump it into the tile set area, and then I'll move it around as I need to. That'll break some things. That's okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and just do that. And we'll call it tile underscore, and then it should... 57 of them. Let's go see what it looks like inside of my Space Rangers folder. So, whoa, okay, all right. I just punched my my controller, my testing controller, off my keyboard. Okay, so we don't need any of these tiles, and everything up to here is all environment. And then we're going to go and create a new file, new folder. We're going to call this one plants. And we'll take these tiles, move them into there. We'll make a new one called items. And we're just going to copy all of that and move it into here. The only thing I'm going to move out of that is the little like cursor crosshair thing. Okay. So should have a basic amount of stuff to work with in here. I see there's a little bit of an error on that pixel, but that's okay. I'll remove it inside of Piskel. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way. We have all this saved for now, and we're going to go back into Gdevelop. So I've already started the project, and that's not it. Where did I... interesting. We're going to go into Space Rangers. What's up, Burke? How you doing? I guess I haven't created it. All right, we're going to get started on that then. We're going to create a project. I'm going to save this in the same location as my Space Rangers stuff. So we're going to create this, and we're going to call this source, or SRC, source. And inside of here, we're going to select this as our save location, and we're going to call this Space Rangers. We're going to optimize this for pixel art, and we're going to stay on the mobile landscape format. So this is how you'd start your project from the very beginning. We're going to turn off allow players to authenticate, because we're going to be re-adding the authentication method back into the game later on for leaderboards and other cool mechanics like that. So for now, that's it. We don't need any AI generation. We have everything we need to get started here. So go ahead and create that project. Now, I've got a few ideas on how I want to get this started. And we're going to use some techniques that I've done in previous videos. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up a grid. And I'm actually going to set up this grid to the same size as the canvas that we're currently using. And I'll explain why in a minute, but we're going to start... Actually, will that work? Let me think about this. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's okay. Usually it would work in this case. So what I was thinking about doing, mechanically speaking, is we would create the canvas like this. So the canvas is built, and then we would size the canvas grid to the same scale as our canvas. So it ended up overlapping sort of like this, right? And the reason why we do this is because we can then put a marker here, here, way over here, and right down here. And we can use those points to create new tile sets, new map elements. But what we're going to do, because we're using this small format, we need to first figure out how big do we need to make the land for us to be able to start building these sort of grid things. So I would like the land to all be the same size. So let's go back in here and take a look at what we can do. We're going to need to zoom in a little bit on this canvas. I already know that based on just the overall size. And we're going to kind of stay zoomed in at a 3 times level, or like it'd be roughly 320 by 180 by the time we're done. I like zooming into that scale. So in this case, it'd be a ×3 scale zoom in. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to simply get started by just adding the terrain elements into the game. And now when you're doing top-down terrain and you're importing things into Gdevelop, we need to consider the way, like, there's no tile setting in Gdevelop, so we have to kind of hand build all of our stuff. And because it's not the same as platformers, we can kind of individually load all of those tiles into the game. And normally we would do that as a individual tile, but I want these to be, we would normally do them as like, well, I guess rather than talking my head off, I'll just show you. Okay, so we're going to start with the player design. I'm going to copy the player in. So we're going to go to our tiles, delete this, and we're actually going to grab it by animation. So we have idle. Let's make sure that our idle animation's solid. I think we're supposed to have all 6 in here. Let's double check. Okay, that guy is absolutely not in the right place. No, I don't think it's supposed to be like that. I think it's supposed to just be these 3? Or these 4, rather. Let's go ahead and... Oh, my goodness. Let's double check with this. Okay, yeah. There's that one. Walk should be the full. There it is. The death animation. The secondary death animation. And then the player rolling feature. But we'll be adding in the player rolling later on. So we're going to stick with just exporting the animations. So we're going to export animation, and then now we can select these. And because we're using Gdevelop, I have to export it as a frame, individual frames. So rather than like a GIF or a sprite sheet. Orangey, what's going on? Let's see here. We're going to browse back into our folders, go to our Space Rangers, and we're inside of our, we're going to create another folder, and we're going to call this player for now. And inside of that, we're going to stick with default. So it'll be default _ walk, default _ idle, death, so on and so forth. And I just got to make sure long death animation 3 is bone death. And then the rolls we're not going to deal with now. So here we go. We're going to walk, save, idle, save. Animation 2 is not right. We're going to have to reopen this. So file, export, animations. There we go. Let's make sure that overwrite without asking. That's good. Walk, overwrite, long death, and bone death. There we go. So now everything is exported, and we can get it added into the game scene. So from here, I'm just going to do the standard, open up my sprites. This is going to, we'll just call it player. Import images, Space Rangers, player. And now we can literally just go through and go, okay, we're gonna do idle first. So there's all of our idle anime. I didn't mean to do that. Right there, you watch me make a mistake. I uploaded the sprites to the engine, which I should have kept them separate in the source folder because they're already there. That's annoying. That's okay. We're gonna go idle. We're going to go. Let's see, where's walk? There it is. We're gonna do all 8 of the walk animations. And then we're just gonna get one animation for death for now. We'll just do dead. Add sprites. And we'll do the long death animation, which is 13 frames long. We're gonna set these to, I think this one's 11. Yeah, there we go. 11 on that one. 8 will work on that one. That needs to be a loop. That needs to be a loop. And then this one does not. There we go. I actually think that this one could be slowed down a bit too. Let's see. I kind of like that slower death. We might even speed it up just a smidge. There we go. Let's do 0.9. Just a slight increase from the... Because we do 8. I guess it's fine. That doesn't look bad. We'll stick with 8. Or 0.08, rather. This one is not a looping thing, so I don't have to worry about that. We're going to click Apply. And then I'm going to go into my behaviors and add in the top-down behavior. So top-down movement. And we're going to turn off default controls. And we're going to allow diagonals, but we're not going to rotate the object. And that way now the player, when we press play, of course we can't move anything, but he is idling. I'm going to get started on the programming. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an event group, and we're going to do a camera manager. Inside of our camera manager, I like to do this as a external event. You don't have to, because camera events are generally like really small. But I have some more advanced mechanics I want to add later on, I think. So for now, we're gonna add it in as a as an external event. I'm going to Shift D to create a child node here. I'm just going to right click on that, and we're going to load in the external event. So we're just going to pop that up, and camera manager. Now inside of the camera manager, we're just going to link that to the untitled scene. And for now, we're going to just add a, we'll add a at beginning of the scene condition. BEG, where's that? At the beginning of the scene. At the beginning of the scene, we're going to zoom the camera in to a factor of 3, and we're going to center the camera. And we just object to center on player camera number 0. So we're going to zoom in the camera, and then we're going to center it. And then inside of this script, because Gdevelop is a compositional language, and the way that it's kind of developed, it reads top down, right? So what we need to do in our top down format here is go into, we need to have one trigger that's red that only happens once at the beginning of the scene. Once that's red, it kind of disables itself. And then we have the feature, which is a constant. I like to add in a variable every time, or a variable group every time I do this, or sorry, an event group. And I just like to document what it's called. So I'm going to document this one as constants. Now this is constantly running. And because there's no condition here, we're going to just center, for now, the camera object. So we're just going to center the camera on the player base. So we do it at the beginning of the scene, and then we constantly run it. Let's run the preview, and that looks much better. So our player doesn't move yet, but we have the beginning of a good visual size, I think. So we're going to increase the size of the overall screen size to make sure that's right. And I think that zoom factor level, there's no fracturing or image blur or anything like that on the character. So I think that we nailed that one right. Going back to our main script, we need to start working on a couple more things. I want to get the player moving as soon as possible. So we're going to focus first on the movement mechanics before we add in any gameplay elements. So we're going to start with a player finite state machine because I guess, does the game warrant a finite state machine? That's always a good question. You have to ask yourself this. Does my game warrant making a finite state machine? It is a lot of code and programming, but with a game like this, it's so simple you might not need it. But I think to future-proof my project, I'm going to go ahead and build the player finite state machine. So player finite state machine. And we're just going to call it finite state machine for now, because I know what's going on here. And we're going to initialize our game, or rather our components. So we're going to need to link some external events that don't quite exist yet. That's all right. We're going to build them now. So linking the external events, we're going to make a player finite state machine initializer, init. Oops. We're going to create a player finite state machine for move. And a player finite state machine for idle. Now, in order, they would kind of go like this, but you don't need to organize here if you didn't want to, but I'll try to keep it organized for viewing purposes. And we're just going to move the camera manager underneath everything. We're going to rename the untitled scene just because it's going to bother me if I don't. We're just going to call it game scene. So now everything that happens, like our game scene, is where we're going to manage all of our game, really, like anything that happens inside of the game. So we're just going to double click it to open it up. And I'm going to start with some organization here. We're going to call this objects. This is a player. The player is an object. We're going to create one called user interface, or UI. So let's go UI. We're going to create another one called tile set. Tiles are fine. All right. So to keep this game running efficiently, I need to consider how many squares we're going to be building and how all of that's going to work on in our game. For now, I need to go in and create a variable on our player. We're going to call this one state. So the player.state, and this needs to be a text, and we're going to put this as init state, or just init, actually, initialize. So we start our player out. Again, these are objects. I know I've gone through this a lot in my other videos. And again, this isn't really so much education as it is letting you guys kind of watch what I'm doing. And I'll do my best to explain it as I'm moving. But this won't be like a major tutorial. I want you to see that I'm making this game, but you can follow along. So whenever you add an object here, we gave the object a variable here. An object should generally manage their own variables. So in this case, the player will manage all of their player variables. And here we have a state. This is the beginning of a finite state machine. We're using a text variable to manage our state changes. So when this changes to idle, move into the idle animation. So we're going to start at initialize. And this is a good point because it helps us debug our game early on. And so I'm going to go into the UI element. We're going to add a new thing, and I always start with a text. We're going to call this debug text. You're going to leave everything as is, except for I'm going to enable a light shadow, and we're going to do black with a white outline. We don't need to do an outline right now. So we're just going to add this to the game. Now, it's all on the base layer currently, so I'm going to add a new layer above it. We're going to call it UI. And we're going to move this to the UI layer by clicking on the object and changing its position of the layer position in the instance panel. So whenever you add an object to the game, hey, what's going on, Riley? And whenever you add something into the game, it's going to create an instance of that object, and which I was kind of getting at before. And each object can have a different state. So if I change this one's instance variable, because this is an instance of the player object, and this is a player object as well, but they're instances. So this is instance number 1, this is instance number 2, effectively. This one can have the idle, and this one can have the initialize, and each of them have their own independent variables. So this is really important as we move on through Gdevelop to understand that core mechanic, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So because the text is up here on the top left, when I preview it, because it's on the UI layer, it always puts it up there in that corner. It doesn't matter if this text is, even though we zoom in the main camera, it doesn't matter that this is up here because the UI text is within the boundary of the viewport effectively, and anything we put in that on the UI layer will remain there. So if you are building a game where the texture never moves from behind the player, like a repeating texture or something like that, you can actually put it underneath the base layer and set it there. But anyways, so we're gonna now go into our game scene, and we're gonna create another condition here, and I want to add a variable event group, and this is a constant as well. So constants at the top. So the thing I want to constantly run, actually we'll do camera manager constant finite state machine for now. I also want the text of the debugger that we just made to change depending on what player state we're in. So if the player, we need to debug text and then select text. And inside of that we can equal, and we're going to do a expression. So here we can see that we can click on the expression menu, or you can type an expression in here. So we don't need between quotes because it's not a, well, we can start with a state. We'll do colon, space, and this, because space is technically an empty string. It'll add that to the text. We're going to do the plus sign, which means include this as well. And then we're going to do player dot state. So the state is equal to player dot state. And all that does is change it inside the engine. It should now go from text to state initialize, because that's the current player state. Excellent. So now that that's there, that's constantly checking for any time that changes. And we could trigger this to say anytime the text doesn't equal the state, we're going to do this, state dot plus player dot state. Now we've turned this from a constant into a trigger. And that's probably more efficient. I'm going to keep it under constants to show you, but now whenever it doesn't equal this, then it'll change. So even though it's reading that code and waiting for a change to happen, this now says that if it doesn't equal this, equal this. And so then it only will update, rather than one time every single frame, it'll only update when this text changes. So now we need to make sure that that's working. So we need to go into our player finite state machine, and we need to initialize our player. And actually, we do this inside of a player finite state machine. I have one more thing I need to add, player finite state machine. So not the initializer, but the standard finite state machine. And we're going to go finite state machine, initializer, idle, move, and then camera. So inside of the finite state machine, we need to create the foundation of our player movement. And so we're going to start by simply just creating the flow of what that'll look like. So I'm going to make a brief little template. So the event group goes first, and this is the template. Inside of that, there needs to be a condition that checks the player's variable, the player variable of state, and we're going to see effectively if it is in the initialized state, which we've discussed, right? So if it's in the initialized state, and this one we could just leave it blank because it's a template. So if the player state equals this, then what we need to do is activate a external event. And what this does is makes it that this must be true before this enables. So now I can copy this template a few times, and we're going to need it. So we're going to go, this is the init state. This is the move state. And this is the idle state. And I'm just going to move those around like that. And we actually don't need these extra ones. And I'm going to disable. So you can click on template, press D, and then minimize that. And so now we just have the basic state. So if the player is into the init state, if they're in the idle state, and if they're in the move state. If we're in the initialized state, load the initialized script. If we're in the idle, load the idle script. And if we're in the move, do the move state. Sorry, I had to talk to my kid. Anyways, back to this. So now, well, Riley, I appreciate you coming and hanging out regardless of your your internet state. Enjoy your holiday though. Okay, so we're gonna go into the initializer now. The initializing script is pretty straightforward. I've been doing this a little bit differently recently that I haven't really been including in my videos as much, but we're gonna start with onload, which is when we load into the game. We're gonna have onload, on run, which means while we're running the game, while init is running, and then we're gonna do transitions or on leave. These don't actually do anything. They're just to leave on load of state. There we go. And this is kind of how I mentally break this down. So on load, what we're going to do is we're going to check. Well, we already know that we're in the initializer state, right? So we can then say, if we're not in that animation, move to the animation. We don't need to do that because this state doesn't actually, in the initializer, we're doing something very specific. But what I wanted to do is kind of create a template for that so I can go over into my other states real quick and add these files or these event groups. There we go, my brain. All right, so now going back to the initializer, what I want to do is basically when we load into the state, we are simply going to transition out. So we already know that we're in the load state. So that means that as soon as we enter the state, we're going to leave. We're going to do an action that leaves us. So we're literally just going to go, if we're in the initializer state, we're going to change the player's variable into idle. Initializer is there as a debug tool to kind of make sure that our character stuff is working. Now, later on, we might load in, like when we start a game and the initializer state activates, we might want to load in our game save into our player save data immediately when we load into the game, and we could do that on the initializer state. And so it is a multi-featured sort of thing, but for now, it's just going to do one thing. If we're in the initializing state, move to the idle state. And we can see if that's true by checking our status here, and it is true. Perfect. So then we can move directly into idle. So on idle, if the player animation by name isn't this particular one, this is not saying not this, it's just saying isn't this and isn't this. So if it isn't this, if it isn't idle, then we want it to be idle. Just kind of like that text change, right? So now we need to go into here and do animation, and we're going to set it by name equal to idle. Now, the reason why we do this is because even though we're entering from the initializing state, later on our animation, when we go back and load the idle state, will not be connected in that way. And so it may have an animation that's like move or roll, and we need to just say, hey, if we're stuck in that, switch out of it and put us into idle. So that's on load. Now, while running in idle, there's nothing happens. If you press a key in idle, it needs to transition to another state. And so that's our on leave, or our transition to leave actions, right? So when any key is pressed, any of the movement keys are pressed, we're going to leave into the movement section. Because everything is read every frame, like basically when you hold a key down, if there is no trigger once condition, it'll fire as many times as it reads inside of a frame, or one per frame. And so we're looking at roughly 50 or 60 frames a second that's reading your key input. So while we hold it down, so we're just checking if any of those keys are going to be held down, and if they are, do this. So what we're going to do is check for or any of this. So we're not going to add anything. It's just if, basically, actually it's not or, it's if. If any of these are pressed, let's see. It is or. or first, sorry. So if one of these conditions is true, and all we need to check now is for key input. Well, I haven't set up the key input yet, so we're going to do that now. We're going to go into our global variables. We're going to add a new variable, and we're going to call this key bindings, or let's say key map. There we go, the key map, and we're going to change that into a structure. Now, a structure allows us to add other variables that have a title, and that's why it's different than an array. Now, when we access the structure, we can call the subchild of that structure by name. And so I want to call this one by name, and this will be, I'm going to go even farther into the development here. We're going to go key map. This is for the keyboard, and we're going to set that as well as to a structure. And now under keyboard, we can look for key impresses. So we can do like up, down, left, and right. So we're going to change this to a text, and all I'm going to do is copy and paste up 4 times, or 3 more times. This will be right, this will be down, and this will be left. Now that we have that format, we can start setting up the text for these. Because it's keyboard, down will be S, left will be A, and these need to be lowercase because they're keyboard, right, D, and then W for up, down, left, and right. And there's no other control than that right now. We have no other control because we're going to be using a radius around our player to be handling all of the actions and input. So now that we have keyboard map, we can go in here and also set up things like controller, or whatever else we might need in custom keys. For now, we're not going to do that. I will be adding that feature in so that way a player, maybe they have a disability that may need an extra key input. So I guess I can build that structure now. So we're going to do this, and we're going to do custom mapping, our custom controller. And this will just guarantee that if there is someone who has a very specific need, that we can meet that inside of our game. So we're going to go up here and go up. And we're just going to duplicate it the same way we did before. Up, right, left, oops, and down. And we're actually going to set these up. W, hello? Oh, number. Gotta set those to text. S, A, D, W. We're going to add a custom key. I got the hiccup, sorry. You might hear me hiccup a few more times. But effectively, now we can use a remapping tool and let them input their own key presses. And it's going to be a little bit more difficult than that, but we'll get to that later on. Okay, so now, if any of these keys are true, transition our state. So we're going to go into here, player variable. We're going to change the state into move, because we know that if we touch any of these keys, we need to move. And now I'll show you how to do that the easiest way possible. So here, we're going to type key, and we're going to look for key text expression, and we're looking for pressed. And the key that we're looking for is actually the key map dot keyboard dot direction. And so in this particular case, it's any of them. So we're going to start with up. So up, and we're going to copy, Control C. And now, now what we can do is just, once we copy this, paste, paste, paste. So we're going to change up to left, down, and right. It doesn't matter what order you do this in. So if any of these keys are pressed, we're now going to move to the move state. But I said before, mobile first. So I'm going to do something I haven't done before. I haven't shown you guys how to do, and it may cause me a hiccup. So we're going to do this in real time. We're going to go to the extensions, and we're going to type mobile. And I'm looking for the... Did they integrate it into... I think they did. Hello, Gdevelop. That blew my mind. You may have actually already implemented it. Mobile. Maybe it's called joystick. There it is. Okay, I wasn't crazy. So this is a multi-touch joystick that can be used the same way as a physical gamepad. It's 4 to 8 directions. You can get the analog plus the analog pads, all of it, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to import that. And it already works. Don't get the depreciated one, get the correct one. So now that we have that, we can also check if those keys are pressed through the joystick. So now if one of these are true, change to move, but now we also need to check the controller, the multi-touch controller. This is what it added. And we need to look for the direction pressed, stick force, input, buttons, and sprite. Let's see if this works. No, we don't want that. Control pressed or simulated. Object. The player. Oh, we have to add the multi-touch to the player. Duh. 1 second. What's going on, Alan? Thanks for joining us. Add a behavior. And now we're going to add the multi-touch top-down controller mapper. So now that we have that, we have a primary stick, top-down, and the stick is 360. And all it's done is add the top-down movement for the controller. So the first controller we'll be looking for. Joystick name, primary. So controller 1, primary, and then top-down movement. So I hit apply. Now we can go into our game events and go back to our idle and check here if the top-down movement is being pressed as well. So now I believe we can just go top. Oh, wait, it's joystick. There we go. Joystick name, pushed in 4-way direction, pushed in a direction in an 8-directional. So if the object does not exist or can't be used, because I haven't added it, because I'm a dingus. So we got to go backwards again to our game scene. You can't move something that doesn't exist, right? So now we need to go into the input and add multi-touch. Now I'm actually curious. I'm going to undo something I've done because adding that behavior may no longer be necessary. So I'm actually going to close that down. I know you guys, if you're following along, I fear for you because this isn't for you. But I am curious if I can do this using just the generic inputs from Gdevelop. So let's find that out. So we're going to go into here. We're going to use multi-touch joystick. And we're going to use... I kind of want to use like this joystick or this one. I think the dark one would be better. We're going to use the dark joystick. Now, because this exists, right, we're going to press preview. Hello. And we need to move that into the appropriate layer, the UI layer. So now this already works, right? So we have directional input, and this is exactly what I was talking. I want this to do exactly this. Because what is going to happen is whenever you click the mouse button down, it's going to move that to wherever you just clicked. And it's going to lock it into place so that way you can continue to move your mouse like this and control your character. So now what I need to do that exists is potentially... Aha! It does come pre-built in. You don't need to add the behavior anymore. It's interesting that they kept it in the extensions. Maybe it does add something more to it. But for now, we're just going to be looking if we're pushed in an 8-directional movement. So we're going to do... Man, that's going to be kind of a pain. Maybe I can use 4-directional input and it'll just work that way. Let's find out. Because we're using 4-directional input here, and that will work the same, so it shouldn't be a problem. So we're gonna do this as right, down, and left. Okay. So if this joystick is pushed in any of those directions, we're going to go into the move state. So that we should see that then happen immediately in our player. It should go to move, as it did. So we are transitioning to state. Perfect. So we know that that's working. Now, I'm going to copy this whole section here on leave, and we're going to go to move, and we're going to paste it in over top of the old I leave, or to leave, and we're going to get rid of this, remove this. Oh my lord. We're going to have to grab each of these and pull them out. And then we're going to delete the if one of these, and we're simply going to say, if none of these keys are being pressed, none of them are being pressed, we need to go back to the idle state. Okay, so we're going to preview that again just to make sure it's working. So what happens now is I can move my keyboard. If I press nothing, it'll go back to idle. And if I move with this, it'll go back to idle. Perfect. Literally perfect. Okay, so now comes the movement script. On run, well, actually, we can copy this. So we're going to go into our on load. If we're not in the move state, did I not name that? Let's go back into player, idle. That's my fault. We got to name this move. Hit apply. Go back into the move state. If we're not in the move, then go to move. While in move, this is where it kind of gets a little fun. We have to explain what to do. So these are where these or conditions go into play again. Or if one of these two is pressed, not if both of them, if one of these two is pressed. And we can actually go into our on leave and grab up from both of them and copy those and paste them into here. And then we're going to click on both of them and press J to uninvert the section. Or you can also go into it and click the undo the invert if you've done that. So now if either of these are done, then we're going to select the player and we're going to simulate a key press. We're going to simulate the up key press. Let's go check that out in our game. If up is pressed, move up. If up is pressed, move up. That's working. Now, there's nothing else going on here, of course, so we need to continue this. So now if keyboard right is pressed, or if stick right is pressed, simulate, you guys guessed it, the right key press. Super straightforward, right? Down, simulate the down press, and then last, oh, we need to change this to down as well, or we're going to have a hiccup. So right, up, up. This is going to the right, this is going up, this is going down, and then we'll go left. Left, and left. Simulate left being pressed. So it's kind of hard to see if the player's actually moving, right? Because there's no direction, like there's no way to tell what's going on here. So we're going to do a brief test. I'm going to save this to make sure I don't lose my stuff. So idle and move is all we need right now. Excellent. And we're going to close the player finite state machine. We have the, we're going to get player manager instead. Manager triggers. So we'll do triggers, camera, and then player. My organization. And now we're going to add in some level of detail to the game real quick, just to make sure that it's working right. I'm going to put the terrain underneath the player, and we're going to go to tiles and do the dreaded tile technique. I don't want to do this, but I don't have a choice. All right, so tile map. What we're going to do is add each sprite as their own tile, and we're going to name it. So this is default. I always name the first tile default when it comes down to a tile map. This is like grass, my standard, whatever the bare minimum is. And we're going to go back into our tile set, go into the environment, and we're going to grab the blank tile, which happens to be number 9. Might be hard for you guys to see. It's totally fine. And now I'm just going to go through and add the sprites for what I'm doing here. So there should be 3 gravel. I only see 2. Oh, there it is. Okay. We're going to grab this gravel 0, gravel 1, gravel 2, add sprite 10, and add sprite 11. All right, so we got default gravel. We're gonna, just because I need to do this, I'm just gonna start doing it. We're gonna go rocks. We'll just do rocks. Let's go add a new one. This will be grass 0. Grass 1. Grass 2. Grass 3. So 2. I already added that one, sorry. We don't need that one. We can delete that. Add sprite and do grass 3 and grass 4. All right, that should be enough for now. I'll add in some of the other things in a minute. And we're going to save this. Okay, so now for the tile map. I'm going to set the grid size now to 16 by 16. And we're going to show the grid, so that way I can actually snap everything to it. And because this is one sprite, this one I could have probably done as a tiled sprite. Normally you don't stretch a tile. Don't do this. But I want to do it for demonstration purposes to make sure that my game is moving. And I put it on the terrain layer, which is silly because the camera moves on the base layer. So I'm going to set this Z position as 0 and the player as 1 and do it this way instead. And we have movement. All right, left, right, up, and down. And it's the same for the keyboard. Perfect. So now when we go left and right, we're going to want to flip our character. So that way at least they're facing in the right direction. And we're just going to have the character, like if left, face left, if right, face right. So I'm going to save this. Again, go into our extensions. It did add the sprite multi-touch joystick extension for us when we added the transparent dark joystick. So I guess it did it automatically for us, even though I deleted it before. So that's nice. And then we're going to go and, like I said, do flip. I like to do the 3D flip personally. It's like my favorite. And to use the 3D flip extension correctly, the best way is to go, we need to go edit our player, go to edit points, and the origin of our player is where it spawns, right? Where the sprite is managed from. It's really important that in this particular case, we put it at the player's feet, and that way we can manage the player from his feet location. And that'll be kind of where everything else is based off of. The center doesn't really matter for now, so we're going to close, hit apply, and now that's been applied to all of the player characters' animations automatically. So now that we have that, we can now flip directly in the center, because usually if we did the 3D flip, it would flip on the origin point, and now it'll flip dead center. So we're going to go back into our player manager and go into the move state. And inside of the move state, underneath the two directions that we want to flip, we're going to go into the right direction. And we're going to set, so if this condition is true, we're going to trigger this once while true, because we don't need to keep triggering this. We're going to do the same thing for the left direction. So I'm actually going to move right and left down by 1. Add this little trigger down below it. And now we're going to say, trigger this once. If the player, we're going to say flip. So first we need to check if we're moving to the right, and the character, we're going to go flip. Oh, 3D. Oh, it only works if you add it to the object, Alex. So you have to go back to the player, go to behaviors, and now we can add the behavior for 3D flip. Flip, and then we need to get rid of top down. There we go, 3D flip. Perfect. Front, back, neared. Interesting. All right. So now we go back to move. If the player is not flipped, if they're not flipped, or rather, sorry, if they are flipped. If it is flipped, flip it. Flip it back to, I'll show you, flip to the object to a side. We're going to do 150 milliseconds. It says in seconds, but that's not true. It's definitely milliseconds, unless they change that. That'd be very strange. So if the players flip, we're going to flip to a side, sorry, and we're going to reverse side no. So reverse side is this is kind of misleading. We're going to go back to 150. This is kind of misleading because if we flip to a side and we are flipped, reverse side no, that means that we go back to the way that we were facing, if that makes sense. We're going to go back in here as well and say if the player isn't flipped, then flip the player. Let's check this out. So now if I go right, good. If I go left, it's not working. Right is working, left is not working. So let's check this out. Flipped. Well, I guess it could be because I set it to 150 seconds. Let's do 0.115. 0.115. Let's see if that works. It did. Okay, so they did switch to seconds, which I find crazy. It used to be in milliseconds, but now we have our character flipping on the left and right side. Wow. All right, that's pretty straightforward, right? I want the flip to be a little bit slower. So we're gonna do and usually now that I was thinking about it, I don't know why I did 115. Usually I do 150. Let's see if that's a little bit better. I think that it's cool to see the flip happen, but maybe even a little bit slower. So let's do 300. We'll do 2.3 and see if that works. I want kind of a slower flip. There we go. Especially with the character having some slide potential. We're going to fix that here in a little bit. But now we have our movement controller working. All right. So this is going to be interesting. Because when the mouse is pressed, it needs to move the cursor over to wherever we click. So we're going to create a little mechanic for that outside of our player finite state machine. We're going to go back to the game scene and we're going to create a new event group, and we're just going to call this mobile movement mobile manager. We'll just do that. Mobile manager. So when the player press, actually we need to do conditions key pressed, but we actually need to look for, it's actually touch, if I'm thinking about it right. Multi-touch identifier, it's the cursor / touch is on an object. Not quite right. We want, there we go. If a button is pressed or the touch is held, and we're going to do left click. So if the left button is pressed, we're going to trigger this once while true. And we're going to move. We're going to position the this object at the position of cursor X, cursor Y. The X position, center position. There we go. The X position to there, and the Y position to here. So now, whenever we click, it should move. But that isn't great, because it's definitely not where the cursor is. Huh? Minus the transparent width divided by 2. And we're going to add the same thing over here to the y-axis, but we're going to change it to height. We're going to help center this object a little bit. So height divided by 2, the object's width divided by 2, because it currently exists. When it's pressed, do that. Let's see if we remove that once condition. See, now it's just going to continuously move around. But we don't want that, because you'll have to touch it twice. Also, it's because it's not on the right UI. That's what's happening. So we actually need to move this particular object from the UI layer to the base layer, at least for now, because that's where the camera is moving. And the importance of that is so that way... Okay, so let's go back in here. We're gonna have to shrink that thing down for sure. Trigger this once while true. So one left key is pressed. But now it's humongous. Gotta fix that. We're gonna shrink that down. Oh no, it has to be on the UI layer. Let me think about this. This little guy needs to be on the UI layer because it can't change. I'm really interested why it's spawning so far away from the cursor. Do we not tell it to spawn at the cursor's location? Let me check this out again. Change the position of the joystick to... like, cursor X, cursor Y should just work. Let's see. Mouse. Oh, yeah. Cursor X. Okay, that is nowhere near accurate. I have a feeling, though, that's because... yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not sure why that is happening. Why is that happening? Number layer number. Let's look at this real quick. Number layer number. Touch 1. UI. Zero. And we're going to do this for this one as well. Aha! I'm a genius. Okay. Now let's take that off. Okay, we're almost there. Okay. So, we need to trigger this once. When left mouse done... okay. Mouse is pressed. And then, now that we've done that, we need to also set the direction. Okay. Let's see. Can we change the internal direction? So you guys know how that circle bit moves around? You know what I'm saying? Like on the inside? We need to make it so that follows the mouse after we've clicked. So we're going to trigger that once. And we're going to make it a little bit bigger. Maybe that'll help. Let's make this smidge bigger. And maybe that'll help, but no, see, then we have to click it again. We want to make sure that when we click it, we don't have to click it again. Idle. Thumb. So we're talking about this called the thumb. The okay. Primary stick, thumb. Maybe we can target that inside of a text expression. Let me think about this. The... Does it have a thumb? Thumb? The... No, I'm trying to think about what this would be called. Let me go into actions, and we're going to look into mobile. Objects, conversions, no. Variable scene, mouse and touch. Layers and camera. We're going to have to go into the object here. I guess it doesn't have what I'm looking for. I'm trying to think of a way for us, rather than designing a new one from scratch, I'm trying to think of how we can do this without messing this up. I might be able to go into the joystick. Yeah, object.behavior joystick angle. So if the joystick angle is pressed, button pressed, is released, is pressed. So if the touch ID of the object is pressed, parameters. I'm trying to figure this out in my head. I need reborn. Reborn knows what this is about. 0. I want to track joystick angle. Set the return value property. Return the angle of the joystick. X, Y. So if the property of the joystick force of the object is less than the dead zone radius, the angle of the object is in the angle of object behavior joystick angle is the 4-way directional get argument as string direction. I got to think about how to get its direction. Joystick on created. Okay. Resets the on deactivate. This is what I need to think about, because we need to manage the touch. It's kind of working. Not the way that I would like necessarily, but it might work better with Let's see here. Because it can't repeat this, right? So repeated on touch number count. Change the touch ID. This isn't quite right. I was messing with this in the wrong section. Update the joystick's position. If is not 0, okay, which it wouldn't be. All right, force. This is boring. I'm trying to look at how to push the condition that I'm looking for into. Oh, interesting. I'm gonna have to return to this in a little bit. I don't want to focus too hard on this, but I'm gonna get this right for sure. Later. So we have what? See. I shrink that down just a smidge. Use it right here. I'm also going to hide it when it's no longer being used, but that's going to make this part a little bit more difficult. All right. Well, that's okay. I will be getting off here shortly anyways, because these will be small development things, but next what we're going to do. Okay, so now that we have basic movement controls in, so WASD work, what I want to do is effectively make an invisible circle around the character, and whenever we're within range of an object, to start beating up that object. So that's what I'm going to be doing in the next part, and I'll be sharing that live with you guys later. I just wanted to fill in a little bit of gap to what I've been doing, and so, or like what I've been planning. Fill in the gaps from. Let me just start that all over again, because none of that made sense. I am working on updating Discord, Ko-Fi, or Coffee, and a few other socials. So it's been a little dead on YouTube, and I'm trying to fill some of that gap in with some of these little like dev videos and whatnot. So if you guys like that, leave a comment in the little comment section, right? Let me know what you guys think. I wanted to announce today as well. Later on today, I'll be releasing the assets for lore. For Project Lore, which is very similar, or which is very similar. It is the assets used in the platformer where we do wall climbing and that sort of stuff. People have asked for those tiles, so those will be available later this afternoon if you're in the US. Yeah, so take a look out for those. They'll be on Itch and on Ko-Fi or Coffee, and I hope that this video was at least entertaining. I will in the next video explain how to fix this to make sure that mobile works the right way, and then we're gonna get started with the basic core functions of our game. So until next time, everyone, thanks for watching and hanging out today. Hopefully you learned something, and as always, happy game making, and I'll see you in the next video.